Hi, and welcome to Askimo TV. We're talking today to Michael Serwa. Michael is a London-based life coach and public speaker. He's worked with hundreds of people on a one-to-one basis and run over 150 talks, workshops, and seminars. Michael, as you know, interviewing for a job can be nerve-wracking. You may feel uncomfortable selling yourself or feel the unexpected questions, or the prospect of having to meet and impress new people may be enough to trigger anxiety. However, interviewing is a skill that can be learned. With the right tips and techniques, you can become a master at sharing your value and potential with future employees, presenting yourself effectively in interviews and getting the job you want. So talk me through your top interview techniques that can help people.
Okay. There's quite a lot of things to cover, but let me just limit that to a couple of my top tips, a couple of top observations. It's something I could talk for half an hour, if not even an hour, right? I've run a couple of workshops on interview techniques. It's a big subject. But let me see if I can give you my top tips. Number one is be passionate, right? When you go on an interview, it's very important to be passionate. Why? Because everybody wants to hire passionate people. Nobody wants to hire a miserable person who is just not happy. And the thing is, we might be in a time of our life when we're not very happy, especially if we've been looking for a job for a very long time. So what I'm asking you to do, if you go for the interview and you feel like that, to fake it, right? I know we can only fake certain things to a certain extent, but if there's any circumstance in our life where we need to fake something, that's the interview. That's the job interview. Because this is our 1 hour or sometimes half an hour opportunity to impress someone, and we will not impress someone by sitting there looking like we want to kill ourselves. So being passionate is the ideal, is something we're aiming for, but the absolute minimum on the job interview is to be enthusiastic, right? To come across as someone who's enthusiastic, right? So enthusiastic about the company we're applying for, we would like to work for. That's number one, right? Because you usually find that people taking care of the interviews for any company are people that are the most passionate about the company they work for. The companies send right people to run interviews to make a good impression on the interviewees as well, right? So if someone is very enthusiastic about the company they work for and they interview you and you're just like, yeah, why would you like to work for us? Well, I don't know, right? That's not a great impression. So being enthusiastic minimum and passively being passionate about the company we interview for and about life in general. And I appreciate it might be hard for some of us sometimes, but this is the time to fake it a little bit. If we have to fake it, we want to fake it. And so that would be number one. Number two, body language. Body language. Now, only 7% of communication is verbal. Yet we give so much attention to what we say. And I'm not saying it's not important, especially in the job interview, what we say. But we can say all the right things in the right way, but we can sub-communicate all the wrong things without even realizing that. So like I said, 7% of communication is verbal. 38% of communication is down to voice tonality, and then 55% is body language. So one thing we want to understand is that the interview process starts long before we start to answer to the first question we've been asked. The interview starts the moment we walk in the interview room. Because we're going to walk in a certain way, we're either going to look straight and confident, or we're going to look like we are intimidated or nervous, right? And the interviewer might not necessarily, probably is not an expert in body language, but the thing is we all judge ourselves, we all judge each other based on our body language all the time. Usually subconsciously, but it's still happening. The judgment is still happening. And so the idea is we can follow a couple of principles, such as walking in, being straight, walking in a confident way, not too fast, not too slow. If you walk too fast, every kind of rushing, whether we rush as we walk, whether we rush as we speak, is a sign of a low value. It's a low value thing. High value people, country leaders. If you look at country leaders, if you look at CEO of any company, they don't rush. Why? Because they don't have to. Because nobody can tell them anything. But the thing is, we don't need to become country leaders necessarily to act like them. Right? We can speak slowly if we want to. If we pay attention to it, we can walk slowly. When I say slowly, we don't end up walking too slow. But that's going to make us look lethargic. So like with everything else in life, it's about balance. So not too fast, not too slow. The same when we speak. We want to speak in a way that the interviewer can understand us. We don't want to mumble, right? So we walk in, we look straight, with a confident body language. When we sit down, we sit straight, right? We have our hands here, so we can use our hands as we speak. Is very important. It's going to make us look much more expressive if we use our hands. Not too much, because this is too much, right? If I'm going to go like this, it's going to be, unless you're Italian, then it's normal for you, right? And you intervene for Italian company, but you want to control your hands, but you want to use them, right? We have two hands. Instead of keeping them on our lap at all time, we want to use them to emphasize certain things that we talk about, to make even bigger impression on the interviewer, the person that's interviewing us. And then, before we sit down, obviously, there's always a handshake, and it's very important to have a strong handshake in general in life, but particularly in the job interview. I've interviewed over 100 people in my previous career, and especially when I was interviewing men and they had a very weak handshake. I'm not saying that I would automatically disqualify them, but I was far away from being impressed. If the especially strong-looking guy is giving me very weak handshake, it's not good. It's kind of it might be misleading sometimes, but usually it reflects weak mentality, right? If it's extremely weak handshake, it's going to reflect something, right? It's coming from someone, right? And another element of body language is eye contact, right? If we have a 1-hour interview and we barely look at the interviewer, it shows that we are either nervous or intimidated, or usually both, combination of both, right? Or we're not certain about what we're talking about, which is not good. So strong handshake, strong eye contact throughout the interview, not too strong. It's not about kind of staring at someone, because that might come across as we're trying to overpower that person. That's not what we want to achieve. It's just, kind of confident, relaxed body language, relaxed eye contact, and, speaking slowly enough for the person to understand very well what we're saying. Taking our time, basically, when we answer the question, not rushing ourselves. The thing is, when we speak very fast, when we rush ourselves when we speak, what it subcommunicates is that we not confident enough in the content of what we're saying. It's kind of like, I don't think what I have to say is interesting enough for you to hear, so let me tell you that very fast before you lose your interest and wander off and start to think about something else. Whereas high-value person will speak very slowly, because high-value person assumes or knows that what he or she is saying is very interesting. And whether it's interesting or not is secondary. It's what that person thinks when they speak. The third thing is preparation, which is pretty basic, to be prepared. And now, when it comes to preparation before the interview, it's not just about, it's not only about learning some information, whatever, about the company we interviewed for or the person we are interviewing for, but it's about knowing the stuff so we can relax and not think about the question that might come that we don't know the answer for. So it's linked to another point I'll be talking about, the confidence. For us to feel confident in the interview, we need to know that we are prepared. That there's nothing or almost nothing they can ask us that we won't know the answer for. So the way I was preparing for my interviews, my previous career, I wouldn't necessarily spend 10 hours. I use the SMART approach, right? I'm a strong believer in working smart versus hard. I mean, sometimes you have to work hard, but if you can work smart rather than hard, I would always go for this option. So what I would do, I would go through the company's website and I would read things like a history of the company and a biography of the CEO or whatever. And I would I would remember a couple of important dates, and I would look for the opportunity throughout the interview to throw this date out there. So if I use the opportunity to say, oh, okay, yeah, I remember it, in 1964 you opened this branch or whatever, so they will immediately assume that I've done my preparation. Even if that date is the only thing I remembered, by me pointing this out and presenting it to them, they will make instant assumption that I've done my preparation. So, of course, I would learn more than just this one date. But the thing is, if you learn something throughout your preparation and you don't show it, it's a waste. And the thing is, if you show it before they ask you, okay, what do you know about the company? If you show that you know something about the company, you will impress them. They might never ask you about the company anymore because they assume you know, you've done your preparation. So that's the most important. And part of preparation is asking questions. So most of the interviews will end up with the interviewer saying, okay, do you have any questions for us? And lots of people I've interviewed would say something like, no, don't worry, I don't have any question now. Big mistake, right? Because even if you don't really care about asking the questions at this point, because you're thinking, okay, this is the first of 5 interviews or 3 interviews, I don't really know if they like me and why would I spend my time preparing some questions. But the thing is, when you don't ask questions, you can make an impression that you just don't care enough. You don't care about the company, or you really don't care about what they could provide you with. You only think about, what can I offer? Is my qualification good enough? Whereas by asking questions such as, okay, why don't you tell me what are the company's values? The immediate message there is, okay, I'm a kind of person who will not work for the companies which values are against my values. That's a high value thing. That's coming across as someone who respects himself or herself, which is very important. So we always want to go to the interview with these 6 questions. And the question I used to like to ask, I don't interview anymore. And that was a killer. I would ask, my last question is always, okay, what makes you passionate about working here? So what I would do, I would change the dynamic of the interview. I would put the interviewer in the position and say, okay, what makes you passionate about working here? And what you will find that since, like I said, passionate people take care of the interviews for the companies, you will find that passionate people love to talk about why they're passionate about working there. And, in the end of the day, everybody wants and likes to talk about themselves the most. So if you give people the opportunity to talk about themselves, they're going to love you for that. And they might not realize why they choose you, but if you make them feel good, right, and you don't make them feel good about bragging about yourself, which obviously in the interview you have to brag about yourself or talk about yourself. Throw a couple of good questions at the end and really change the dynamic a little bit and put yourself on the driver's seat. So that's preparation. Number 4, big mistake people do on interviews is to treat the interviewer like he or she is superior to them. And of course, it's quite easy to think like that because they are interviewing you. They have a high position with the company you're trying to work for. But then in the end of the day, we want to remember that nobody's superior to anybody, really. So the fact that this guy or this girl has more money than I do right now, because I'm interviewing for within their company, doesn't mean they're superior to me. And the thing is, the moment we talk to them like they're superior, they won't respect us as much. Whereas if we talk to them the way we talk to our friends, which is exactly what I used to do on interviews and what I tell my clients to do, just talk to them like they are your friends with respect. I mean, it depends if you respect your friends. I hope you do. You talk to them with respect, and then they will respect you for not treating you like they are better than yourself, right? Which is not very attractive. And very quickly, the last 2, we want to remember that people make decisions based on emotions. It's very important. And if they invite you for the interview, you're already qualified. So you don't need to worry whether your CV is good enough, right? All you need to worry about is to make a good impression, is to make an emotional, deep connection with the interviewer. Because after the interview process, there will be, let's say, 10 candidates or 20 candidates or 5 candidates, and all of you have similar qualifications. All of you have similar CVs, hence you've been invited for this interview. But the person who will usually get the job is the person who will make the strongest connection with the interviewer on the personal level. That's why the moment you walk into the door, you want to start, you don't want to be all serious and, you want to have a small talk conversation with the interviewer. You want to have a small talk, little conversation with the interviewer after the interview, before you leave the house, before you leave the room. So aim for this personal connection is very, very important. And the last point is to come across as confident throughout the process. Because the only way for the interviewer to have a confidence in you as a potential employee is for you to come across as a confident person. It's going to be very hard for that person to think that you can get the job done if you lack self-confidence. And like I said, if you struggle with that, you want to work off your confidence is a very important thing, obviously. But if you lack it, you can act like you have more of it. Again, you can fake it a little bit. Because, once you get the job, you will learn everything you need to learn anyway. So it's just this interview process to, if we can communicate strong message as far as our confidence is concerned, and we get the job, then everything will take care of itself. So it's not about, I'm not talking about lying here. I'm talking about creating the image of someone who can get the job done, which is what every employee is looking for.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.